Hello, my name is Vanessa Tate, and this presentation has been developed to teach you how to use the Journal of Behavioral Health Services and Research, or JBHS&R, referencing style. This presentation should assist authors wishing to submit a manuscript to the JBHS&R, as well as students using this referencing style for a course you're enrolled in. The learning objectives for this presentation are: first, an introduction to the Journal of Behavioral Health Services and Research, as well as basic formatting and style requirements of the JBHS&R referencing style. 2, be able to correctly use JBHS&R referencing style for in-text citations. 3, be able to correctly assemble the references list in JBHS&R citation style. 4, understand the key differences between JBHS&R and APA citation styles. 5, be able to identify common mistakes and how to correct them. 6, we'll go over some helpful resources you can consult both on and offline. And lastly, implications for behavioral health, what this section is and what should be included in it. I'd like to begin with a brief overview of the Journal of Behavioral Health Services and Research. The JBHS&R is a peer-reviewed journal that has been in publication for over 40 years. This academic journal is published 4 times per year in January, April, July, and October. The editor-in-chief of the JBHS&R is Dr. Bruce Levin, and the JBHS&R is the official publication of the National Council for Behavioral Health. Many of you might be thinking, I know APA already, why can't I use that? Isn't that what most publications in behavioral health use? Well, that particular belief is not quite true. There are more than 7,000 referencing styles currently in the database of registered citation styles. Common ones are the American Psychological Association, or APA, the American Medical Association, or AMA, the American Journal of Public Health, MLA, and Chicago, among others. So it is important for you to understand and be able to use at least one other citation style beyond APA. For those of you who may already know AMA citation style, this should be an easy adjustment. For those of you who are only familiar with APA or MLA, there are some significant differences between JBHS&R and these citation styles. In the next few slides, we're going to go over some example references in JBHS&R, and I will show you a few comparisons between APA and JBHS&R as well. I like to think of references as a mathematical formula or a recipe. There are a set number of items that must be included, or the results will not turn out as intended. Nearly all referencing styles require the same information, but vary in order and style. When you think about a reference in terms of what information do I need to provide so that someone else can locate this reference easily, the citation becomes a little bit easier to think about and then assemble. Before we start, I'd like to bring your attention to a few key components of the JBHS&R referencing style that you should keep in mind when writing. First, in-text references appear as chronological superscript numbers. Second, in the references list, only the first 3 authors should be listed, followed by et al. And third, the entire journal name should be spelled out completely, no abbreviations. And we'll circle back to these key concepts at the end when we talk about the most commonly made mistakes in the JBHS&R citation style. You can also see here that while the JBHS&R citation style is closely related to the AMA citation style, there are some key differences. This slide highlights formatting and submission requirements for authors and students. Your paper should be written using 12-point font with 1-inch margins, and your in-text citations should not be inserted using Microsoft Word's footnotes feature. I've provided a few pictures here indicating how to insert a superscript number using Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. Inserting a superscript number is easy in Microsoft Word. The X squared icon located in the font section of the home menu, shown in the box, toggles superscript text on and off. In PowerPoint, there is a 2-step process for inserting superscript text. First, in the font section of the home menu, there's an expansion menu arrow you can see highlighted in the box. From this menu, click the superscript box and then click OK. Keep in mind that you will need to repeat this 2-step process to turn off superscript text. Due to publishing restrictions, there are two important concepts to keep in mind when submitting to the journal. Submissions must be in Microsoft Word, and no colors may be used in figures, tables, or graphs. Student submissions must be turned in via Canvas, and all papers and exams will be submitted through plagiarism detection software. Please note that reusing previous submissions of your own work does count as plagiarism and is not tolerated by the University of South Florida. All student submissions, including papers, exam answers, and discussion board posts, are encouraged to use creativity, including the use of graphics that utilize color. While APA citation style has 5 heading levels, JBHS&R has 3. This first table here illustrates each of the 3 levels. Level 1 headings such as Introduction, Methods, Results, and Implications for Behavioral Health should be centered with boldface type, and each word should be capitalized. Level 2 headings should be aligned to the left in boldface type with only the first word capitalized. And Level 3 headings should be left aligned and paragraph indented, should immediately precede the first sentence of the paragraph, and only the first word should be capitalized. Now let me show you an example of how to format each heading level. And a helpful hint to remember when formatting your headings: for second and third level headings, only proper nouns and the first letter of the first word should be capitalized. Moving on to in-text references, and I'd like to break this into 2 parts. First, I'll cover what you need to know about using the JBHS&R citation style for in-text references. And then second, we'll look at some examples in both APA and JBHS&R so that you can look at the differences side by side. To continue the metaphor that references are like recipes, this slide illustrates the different ingredients necessary depending on the type of reference you want to make. First, let's review the basics of the JBHS&R in-text citation requirements. In-text references are denoted with superscript numbers that occur at the end of the sentence. There should be no spaces between the punctuation at the end of the sentence and no spaces between multiple superscript citation numbers. Next, quotations require quotation marks, and the page number where the quote is located in the original source should be included in parentheses. And lastly, block quotations should be used for quotations that are longer than 4 full lines of text. Block quotes should be indented 1 tab on both sides, should use 10-point single-space text, and quotation marks should not be used. You should include the superscript reference number and page number in parentheses with the citation. Now let's take a look at some examples. Starting with the basics, and you can see we have our key takeaways from the previous slide in the right-hand corner. Let's start with examples of basic JBHS&R in-text citations, and then I'll bring up an example of APA in-text citations. So in our 3 JBHS&R examples here, you can see the use of the superscript number that follows punctuation without any spaces. For 3 or more citations that are in sequential order, they should be separated with a dash, and again, no spaces. For multiple citations that are not several numbers in a row, these should be separated by commas, and again, no spaces between the superscript number and comma. Now to compare to APA citation style. As you can see, APA uses author last names and publication dates for in-text references. The use of the superscript number as opposed to the author last names for in-text references provides an easier reading experience for the reader, and is the preferred in-text citation style for many of the frequently used citation styles among academic journals. And a couple more helpful hints. The superscript number represents the order in which your citations will appear in your references list, which means your references list will not be in alphabetical order. In-text quotations that are fewer than 4 lines are very straightforward. Again, we have our key takeaways for in-text quotations in the top right-hand corner. Now let's take a look at our JBHS&R example. As you can see highlighted in the boxes here, you should use quotation marks and use a superscript reference number with the page number in parentheses. And with our APA example, You can see the main difference here is the use of the superscript number rather than the author name, or in this case organization, with the publication year. Both citation styles use quotation marks and page numbers in parentheses. And now lastly, for in-text references, block quotations. Again, you will see our key takeaways here in the right-hand corner. And as with the previous slide on in-text quotations, you'll see some similarities between APA and JBHS&R. But first, let's look at our JBHS&R example. As you can see, the block quote is indented on both sides. There are no quotation marks. The block quote is single-spaced and smaller font than the rest of the paper, and there is a superscript reference at the end of the block quote. This reference happens to be a website, otherwise you would want to include the page number in parentheses with the superscript citation number. And for our APA example, you can see that block quotes are only indented on the left side, and then of course author name and publication date in place of the superscript number. Okay, great. Now that we've reviewed JBHS&R referencing style for in-text citations, let's move on to the references list. As I mentioned earlier, I like to think of references as a formula or recipe. You have 5 basic components of your references, using journal articles as our example here. Generally speaking, there are 2 significant differences between JBHS&R and APA citation styles: punctuation and the order of the key components of your reference. As you can see in this diagram, the year the article was published appears later in the JBHS&R citation style than APA. So while our ingredients are the same, there are subtle yet significant differences between the two. First, let's review the key features of the JBHS&R citation style. Reference number 1 in your references list is the first citation that appears in your paper. Remember the hint from earlier? Your references list will not be in alphabetical order. Your references list is in the order in which your citations occur in your paper. Only the first 3 authors should be listed, followed by et al. Do not use the word and between author names. Journal names should be spelled out completely, no abbreviations. All the numbers for your citations occur at the end. The year published, issue, volume number, and pages are all grouped together at the end of the reference. And finally, the details really do matter. Pay close attention to punctuation, capitalization of titles, and the correct use of italics. Additionally, there should not be any periods between the author initials, nor should there be a comma between the author last name and their initials. Now let's take a look at some examples for how to use the JBHS&R referencing style for journal citations. First, I'm going to bring up our example in JBHS&R referencing style. You can see I've highlighted some of the points discussed on the previous slide. Note the formatting of the author names and the location of the year published. Now let's bring up a sample journal citation in APA style. Again, I've highlighted the formatting of the author names, the publication date, and the volume, issue, and page numbers. Now, since we are learning, I also wanted to show you each of these examples in the opposite citation style so that you can see how to convert a citation from APA to JBHS&R and vice versa. The lime green box is our APA citation in JBHS&R referencing style, and the teal green box is our JBHS&R citation in APA referencing style. Next, let's take a look at examples for how to use JBHS&R referencing style for books and chapters in a book. For books, you can see I've highlighted in the boxes the author names and the year the book was published. For chapters in books, I've highlighted both the author names and the editor names. Remember, no periods or commas between last names and initials. And then location and order of chapter page numbers, publication year, and the publisher of the book. Now let me bring up these same references in APA style. I've highlighted the same criteria in the APA examples as in our JBHS&R examples for you to be able to directly compare the differences between the 2 referencing styles. Now let's turn to government publications. This will be the last slide where we will look at JBHS&R and APA citation styles side by side. Citing government publications seems tricky or intimidating, but keep in mind that constructing a reference is about providing all of the information needed for the reader to locate the citation, but in the specific order and style of the referencing style guidelines. In many cases, government publications provide a suggested citation. Remember, there are more than 7,000 citation styles? This suggested citation should provide all the information needed for constructing your JBHS&R reference, but you should not copy and paste the suggested citation into your references list. So in addition to our JBHS&R example of a frequently cited government publication, I also wanted to provide 2 additional examples of frequently cited government publications I've converted from APA to JBHS&R. You can see, again, the major differences here are in the formatting of the author names and the location of the publication date. Also note that the Levitt citation includes the Department of Health and Human Services in the JBHS&R reference, but not in the APA reference. Now let's look at 3 of the most common types of online citations. Websites. Check to see if there is an author. If not, the organization would qualify as the author. Next is the title of the page on the website. Please note that the navigation pages that you may click through to get to the page you are citing should not be included in your reference. Next, you would put the parent, organization, or company if applicable. And then lastly, you want to list the site using the phrase available online at preceding the web address, followed by the date you access the website on. Online videos. Similar to websites, online videos should include the author or presenter name, the title of the video, source of the video, and how to access the video. Online-only journals, also called open access journals, lack some of the identifying information that printed journal articles contain. So here is an example of how articles which only appear in an open access journal should be cited. Please note that open access journals may republish an article that appears in print with another academic journal, and that you should cite the original source of the material whenever possible. And then lastly, for the references list, here are some examples of the most common types of citations not previously covered in this presentation. The first 2, in press and online first, are similar but represent 2 different time periods in the acceptance process. In press indicates the paper has been accepted to a journal but may still be undergoing editorial changes or has not yet been published online nor a printed copy released. Online first articles have completed the editorial acceptance process and have been published online ahead of the print copy being released. Next, we have sample references for presentations, as well as a thesis, dissertation, or course paper. And then lastly, how to cite course lectures and presentations. Okay, to recap and reinforce what we've learned today, let's take a look at the top 3 most commonly made mistakes when using the JBHS&R referencing style for both in-text citations and your references list. For in-text references, a common mistake is to put the superscript number before punctuation. However, the superscript number should occur outside of all punctuation as shown in the correct example here. Correctly citing page numbers in text can also be problematic, but as you can see from this example, page numbers should be in superscript numbers inside parentheses with no spaces in between. Please note that it is a singular P, period, and the page number or range of numbers. And let me just stress again, there should not be any spaces in your superscript citations. And then lastly, for in-text references, block quotes tend to be tricky because they aren't used very often and it is sometimes hard to locate information on how to use them correctly. The number 1 mistake made in the references list when using the JBHS&R citation style is formatting the author names. As you can see here in the example, only the first 3 author names are listed, there are no commas between author last names and initials, and there are no periods between author initials. Next, the placement of the year published. This should occur near the end of the reference with the volume, issue, and page numbers. And then lastly, the verbiage surrounding web addresses. Be sure that available online at precedes the website address, and then you provide the date the site was accessed on. Whether a student or author, there are several resources beyond this presentation to assist you with the JBHS&R referencing style. First, the author guidelines document I have referenced can be downloaded 2 ways. Students will find this document uploaded to Canvas in Course Resources under the Modules tab. Authors may download the document from jbhs.fmhi.usf.edu/authorguidelines.html. Second, the JBHS&R citation style is based closely on the American Medical Association Manual of Style 10th edition, which was published in 2007. Be sure to note the 2 main differences between JBHS&R and AMA we discussed back on slide 4. Only the first 3 authors should be listed, followed by et al., and journal titles should be spelled out completely, no abbreviations. And lastly, students should consult both the course syllabus and course resources on Canvas for the contact information of faculty and staff who are able to assist you with the JBHS&R referencing style. Authors should contact the editorial associate for the JBHS&R at jbhsr@usf.edu with any questions. All submissions that utilize the JBHS&R referencing style require an implications section. For students viewing this presentation, the title of your implications section should correspond to the course you are enrolled in. Please see your course syllabus for more information. So what? Who cares? Gets to the point of the implications section. What is the relevance or significance or importance of your writing to the larger fields of behavioral health and public health? This section is not intended to be a summary, discussion, nor concluding paragraph, but should emphasize the significance and importance of your writing to behavioral health and public health. And finally, the implications section should be the last section prior to your references list, which means we have reached the last slide of this presentation. If you have additional questions regarding the implications section, please contact the resources discussed in the previous slide. And of course, this presentation would not be complete without a references list. Thank you so much for viewing this presentation today, and both Dr. Levin and I hope that you find this helpful and consult this presentation as well as the other resources listed in this presentation when using the JBHS&R referencing style.